They realized that the battleground used to be the web, and it's very quickly becoming that the battleground are these closed, proprietary sort of walled gardens where people are aggregating content and trying to set up platforms for other people to come in and create content, because that's where the majority of people are going to be spending their time and their money. Oh yeah, and of course, so once that happens, that's going to shrink down some of those businesses, and it's going to not be good for physical retail. A lot of people are predicting, is this the beginning of the end for a lot of the previous models? We talk about specifically cloud computing. In this case, companies or stakeholders that are going to benefit from cloud computing, obviously the customers are going to benefit because there's a lot of new models that it opens up in terms of being able to, rent games for periods of time, all the instant play stuff that we already talked about. Developers, I'm going to talk about this in a couple further slides, but it essentially brings the developer that much closer to their end user and makes it so that they can build products that get out there and get noticed without necessarily having to spend a ton of money. And also publishers will benefit initially, I think, from this, just because the costs are lower for digital distribution. You can afford to take some more risks and things like that. People that are not going to benefit from the cloud, obviously physical retailers being the major one, and hardware makers also. There's speculation about whether or not services like OnLive could kill off the consoles and things like that. Logically, it makes a lot of sense because if you're a game developer, you don't want to build necessarily 3 or 4 different versions of a title. You'd like to build one, and if that platform technology existed where you could access all of your customers with that one version, then great. So there's a chance that hardware makers will also be affected by this. And then I think there's a big question also about the role of publishers going forward. And if you're talk about that in a couple of additional slides, but if you're in this environment where distribution and discovery and everything like that is largely sort of crowdsourced, and people can find content that is popular and that has been vetted by their peers and stuff like that, really in a distribution and marketing role, where does the publisher sort of exist in that environment? Ways that customers benefit in this world, obviously all the old truisms about infinite shelf space and long tail. More content creators and lower prices. We'll go into that in a second. This is probably the most important overall fact here that you can be lazy. And by lazy, I don't mean it necessarily a negative way. It's about minimizing friction. And to the extent that you can bring stuff closer to people where they don't have to get up and go down the street, or they don't have to get up and go into the next room and get on their computer, if you can push stuff to them in their pocket or in their living room, obviously over time, if you look at things on the grand sort of macro scale, that's going to win out over other things, over flexibility or other advantages that platforms like the web have. No loss or damage of physical disks. More special offers. So you go online, there's a 24-hour sale on Steam and all this type of stuff. There's really a lot of flexibility from a merchandising and sales standpoint. And of course, all of the other flexible models that you can do with these new services. And portability. The great thing about both Steam actually and services like OnLive and what we're doing at GameStreamer is that you can hook up to your library from any connected device and access the content there. You don't have to download it and install it or those types of things. So this gets back to one of the earlier points that I made about developers benefiting from this. These are some screenshots from a title. Some of you may recognize what this is. If you do, feel free to call it out. Otherwise, it will be revealed shortly. Looks great. It's a very high detailed, high resolution, obviously first-person shooter. This is all in-game stuff. These aren't promotional shots. Great, it looks like it could be one of the new Modern Warfare or Halo or something like that in terms of the amount of detail in the environments and the resolution. This is anybody know what this is? Yeah. So this is a title that came out specifically download only for Xbox Live and PC. $15. And this is just like a 30-second thing where the guy's talking. All right, well, that's not going to work. All right. Well, what he was saying is that they made the decision to go specifically with download only because they could focus all their energy on creating a really kick-ass multiplayer experience, because they realized that's really what a lot of the people that play these shooters want. So rather than spend a ton of money developing a whole storyline and single-player campaign, they just went straight and they created the best multiplayer experience that they could, the best looking graphics and the fastest action. Tons of customization. They have, I think, 12 different levels that you can play in the game. There's maybe 7 different game types, from capture the flag to team deathmatch and stuff like that. So it's a really rich game. And it's $15, and it's download only. So that's a great example of a small group that decided we're going to build something really cool, put it out there for very cheap, and let the buzz sort of build around it, and then focus on the downloadable content for additional map packs and things like that. But it's a model that would have never ever worked, you know, in the physical world. So what you're seeing now is that the quality of games that you're getting, Xbox Live is no longer, you know, download only is no longer just the sort of retro classics or the you know, arcade sort of style games. These are full-on, you know, excellent, well thought out, well planned out games. And it's opening the door for much bigger possibilities for direct distribution. Now, talking about game developers and publishers, obviously lower costs. The physical production costs of you know, stamping discs and moving them around in inventory and stuff like that is really significant. So higher profit margins for digital distribution. They can take more creative risks. I have another video, hopefully, I don't know if that will have the same sound issues or not, but because they don't have to gamble so much on the cost of putting one of these things out there, they can afford to take more risks with more creative content and explore things a little bit more. The same benefit as before with the infinite shelf space. From a merchandising standpoint, it's huge. Having had the experience that I had at Direct to Drive, just you can react so much quicker as a vendor or a seller in terms of creating promotions, reacting to competition, things like that. It really is something that you just can't match in the physical world. Reduced friction, instant gratification. There's a lot of conversion from trial and things like that that are possible in digital. You have a more direct relationship with your customer, and this is an important point, actually. Because one of the things that people really get frustrated with Steam is that Steam pretty much, once they sell a Steam game, Steam sort of hijacks that customer and brings them into their own environment. And if you buy the game from Best Buy and it's got Steam in it, it may be the last game that you ever end up buying from Best Buy, because everything just gets placed for you right there. So one of the things that some other companies are doing, in addition to GameStreamer, is trying to find ways to let the vendors or other people that are managing these game stores take control again of the relationship with their customer, so they can manage that themselves and get recurring revenue on an ongoing basis. And then, of course, nobody in the gaming industry really likes the fact that GameStop goes out and sells, you know, used games and things like that, so that gets cut out. Especially if you're talking about the cloud, more secure DRM and anti-piracy, you don't have really any issues with piracy with cloud streamed games. There's no local download of the files at all that can be hacked or anything like that. So let's try to see if this...
From Dust is a modern take on the god game genre. Here, nature is the star. We aim to recreate the emotions you experienced as a child when building and destroying sandcastles on the beach. The player can model the world they are playing with. We want to create a universe that reflects the power of nature, the relative insignificance of mankind, and the brevity of its lifespan. A world which evolves according to its own rules.
So that was a title that's coming out from Ubisoft called From Dust, that some of you may or may not be familiar with. But it's, again, it's a digital